With the recent release of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Phase 4 of the MCU has finally come to a close. But which phase is the best out of all four? Well, today, I'm going to take a look at all four and give you guys my rank from the worst to the best. Well, there's no sense in wasting any of y'all's time. You know what this video is about, so without further ado, let's get right into it. At number 4, I have Phase 4. This phase so far is the only one that features both TV shows and movies trying to fit together in the same continuity. And the total list is... Give me 1 second. Black Widow, Loki, What If, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Miss Marvel, Werewolf by Night, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Whew! It really goes without saying that this phase had the most projects by far. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. With the conclusion of the Infinity Saga, Marvel was definitely looking to try new things. And try new things they did. I really do commend their efforts, but I really feel like there were too many mediocre or straight up bad projects to call this phase good in any way, shape, or form. The way I see it, it's death by a million paper cuts. While there really were some truly great movies and TV shows, like Spider-Man No Way Home, WandaVision, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, these unfortunately are the outliers. On another hand, you have Black Widow, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Hawkeye, and Moon Knight, which were all, in my opinion, pretty incredibly mid, with some being a little worse than others. But then you have some of my least favorite projects in the MCU ever that are in this phase, such as She-Hulk, Eternals, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, Thor Love and Thunder. And the fact that there's 5 or 6 projects that I genuinely dislike in this phase really makes it easy for me to put this on the very, very low tier of MCU phases. Phase 4 just really felt like it was missing something. Was it the continuing continuity of just not feeling like there was a plan for half of the movies? Or was it just studios actually trying to go the other way and give their directors way too much creative freedom? I mean, if you think about it, yeah, they technically did have connecting stories. But to be honest, I really feel like they just didn't flow together as well as previous phases. You know how in the Infinity Saga, all of those movies had to work towards a common goal, or in this case, a common enemy being Thanos and the Infinity Stones. And even though earlier movies were more so focused on bringing together the team, they still had a grand master plan. And I feel like with Phase 4, there was a lot of confusion among the audience members because all of us fans were like, where are we going with this? I mean, I really feel like there was post-credit scenes that just didn't really make sense, plot points that really felt like they just got abandoned almost immediately. And then from the director's side, you bring in such an incredible and visionary director like Sam Raimi from Multiverse of Madness, but then you really don't embrace his full creative control over the movie, and it led to just a jumbled mess of a movie that felt like there was no actual faith in Sam Raimi to really deliver the wacky, over-the-top, and genuinely fun movie that he wanted to make. Instead, it felt like a movie that was half directed by Sam Raimi and half directed by the studio that was keeping him on a tight leash and pulling him back going, oh, no, I wouldn't go that far. And instead of it being the Multiverse of Madness, it really just felt like the Multiverse of Mid. But then on the other side, you have Taika Waititi in Thor Love and Thunder, and that really felt like he had no leash to begin with, and the Marvel executives were just like, you know what, man? Do whatever you want to do. This entire movie and these characters are your playground. And I felt like that didn't work at all. It's like putting a kid in a candy store and just telling him, hey, you can grab whatever you want, don't even worry about it. Yeah, of course he's gonna do whatever he wants to do because he's not gonna have any supervision. And I feel like that was the exact case with this movie, and it really didn't do Thor any justice. And the result of that is you get a complete deconstruction of Thor's character, which really felt like a huge setback, especially considering the incredible development he had received in movies prior. And also the writers of all these projects felt extremely lacking as well. I'm assuming it was probably due to a lot of different things. I mean, tight schedules, rushed productions, quality of work, lack of studio accountability, but I feel like that's more so of a byproduct of Marvel not having as much creative control as they did in the past. It just really felt like they were trying to do way too many things and they put way too many eggs in too many baskets. Well, if any recent reports are to be believed, it really seems like Marvel has really taken notice of the things that fans have had huge issues with, and I really hope that they fix all of these going into Phase 5. Moving on to my number 3 spot. At number 3, I have Phase 1. I really didn't want to do this, but the way I see it, from here on out, we have nothing but really, really great phases. So putting it at number 3 is not necessarily saying it's a bad phase. There are just other movies and other phases that I just can't put lower than where it's at right now. Phase 1 was the groundbreaking opener for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it. And also, considering the fact that almost all of these movies in Phase 1 are origin stories, really goes to show the quality and love and care they put into crafting these beginning stories. I mean, you got Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, The Incredible Hulk. Kinda, sorta. Hulk! And while most of these stories and movies aren't universe altering or on a galactic scale, they did feel very heartfelt. And you could tell the directors had an actual vision and a passion for what they do. And all these movies really do hold up surprisingly well over time. If I'm just being real with you guys, I would gladly rewatch the first Thor movie and even the Incredible Hulk movie over most of the projects that are in Phase 4. That's kind of a big deal. I also really like that each origin movie kind of has a specific theme for each character as well. So for Iron Man, you kind of have that heavy metal, Black Sabbath, hot rod action movie. With Captain America, you get a throwback period piece set in the 1940s, complete with some amazing sets and backgrounds. And it really felt like you were right in the middle of World War II with him. And for Thor, you have a visually stunning Shakespearean drama with larger than life characters and Dutch angles. Lots and lots of Dutch angles. But all of these movies weren't made to not have any relation to each other. In fact, they were all created to build towards the climax of Phase 1. And you know which movie I'm talking about. The Avengers.
How's this, Squidward?
It's beautiful!
This is literally the perfect way to end Phase 1. It's not the most technically sound movie, but it really embraces and knows its role as a truly bombastic superhero movie. With awesome team-ups, incredible action set pieces, and one of the most compelling and engaging villains of all time in Loki. There's no other words to really describe the Avengers movie other than generational. It's really hard to top the classic one-liners and quips.
You have no idea what you're dealing with.
Shakespeare in the Park? Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
And let's not forget about the iconic superhero costumes. I truly do believe that Phil Coulson said it best.
Everything that's happening, the things that are about to come to light, people might just need a little old-fashioned.
Coming in at number 2, I have Phase 2. This phase really felt like they had the MCU running like a well-oiled machine. Listen to the list of movies and tell me that I'm wrong. Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark War. Oh, okay, maybe not that one. But before we move on, I do want to address one specific thing. Can you keep a secret? Come here. Are you ready? Are you sure? Positive? Iron Man 3 is not a bad MCU movie. There. I said it.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Usually when you're on someone's third solo movie, you really start to grow tired of that character, especially if there's not a drastic change in that character's personality. But I'd say Tony Stark in his third movie is still on his A game as a character. Focusing in on Tony's guilt and PTSD was the right move by the director. And I actually really liked the script and the direction from Shane Black. Also, I believe Tony and Harley's relationship was done very well. And it was nice to see Tony in a way mentor a young boy in his own unique and creative way. With some of the darker vibes in this movie, I could start to see a little inspiration from the Demon in a Bottle Iron Man story arc from the comics. Granted, they're not going to do a deep in-depth breakdown of Tony's alcohol addiction that he had in the comics, and I do feel like they did kind of dial it back a little bit for more of a general audience. But I do understand that because it is a reimagining. As for the Mandarin, yeah, okay, you can have that one. I don't hate Trevor Slattery's character. In fact, I thought he was pretty funny. But I definitely wasn't a big fan of Aldrich Killian becoming the plot twist villain, in this case, actually announcing himself as the Mandarin.
You're looking right at him. It was always me, Tony. Right from the start. I am the Mandarin!
Right.
But anyway, I stand by what I said about Iron Man 3. Now back to the other movies. You got Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a huge surprise that nobody saw coming. James Gunn took these previously unknown characters and put them right in the spotlight. To me, it was just such a great mix of family learning how to work together, and James Gunn's sense of humor really shines in this movie. And then you have Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Need I say more? I don't want to spend hours talking about this movie because this video is going to be way longer than I'd want it to be. So I'll just say that this is a top 3 MCU movie of all time, and then we're just going to leave it at that. Then you have Age of Ultron, which I believe is not nearly as bad of a movie as other people think as well. And I created a video on that with a friend if you want to check that out. Then you have the phase concluding with Ant-Man. And Ant-Man is just a fun, low-stakes heist movie with just the right amount of goofy comedy, but then also a very heartfelt message about family as well. Also, Paul Rudd, you are a national treasure. Overall, it's just so easy to go back and relive some of these movies from the earlier phases and just appreciate the quality that it took to make the MCU run on full cylinders. And finally, coming in at number 1, I have Phase 3, which is the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. Man, talk about some heavy hitters in this phase. By now, these actors have been playing these characters for so long that it takes almost nothing for them to slip right back into character for all of these team-up movies and even for the solo movies. Speaking of those new movies, we also do get some new characters that are introduced in this phase, like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. I mean, this phase starts out with Captain America Civil War, and I feel like this movie starting out Phase 3 immediately sets the pace and elevates all the movies that come after it, because they establish these high stakes that have to be paid off down the road, specifically focusing on the fracturing of the Avengers, and more specifically, the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. When it comes to some of the other movies, I feel like Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and Black Panther were very entertaining, and while they're not my favorite MCU movies, they also don't suck. Then you also have Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, and Spider-Man Homecoming that I believe are some of the strongest additions to Phase 3. Ant-Man and the Wasp was really mid in my opinion, and it really just doesn't do much for me on rewatch, but that's just my opinion. And the less time I spend talking about Captain Marvel, the better.
You're just like me. Trash!
You may have noticed that I failed to mention 2 specific movies, and trust me, that was intentional. The combination of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame is the best possible conclusion that the MCU could have ever asked for. They feature over a decade's worth of heroes that we've grown up with, and after celebrating their accomplishments and also joining in on their suffering, we've reached the point where we have very close attachment to these people. And in addition to all that, you put them in these movies to oppose what could be one of the greatest villains of all time in Thanos, and you got yourself a recipe for a perfect ending. But oh yeah, Thanos. Never before had we seen such a fully fleshed out, convincing, or surprisingly sympathetic character, or in this case a villain, in the MCU. Yeah, we've had some great villains before like Loki and Killmonger, but I don't think they reached the heights that Thanos reaches in these 2 movies. I mean, Infinity War is basically his movie and we're seeing things from his perspective. The best part is that his presence pays off years of appearances and post-credit scenes and teases, and Marvel really knew how to build up hype and anticipation, and I'm so glad that they took their time when it came to building up his story and not just throwing him in some earlier projects just to say that they had him in them. Again, I'm just so glad that they decided to take their time, which is not something I can really say about recent projects. You know what? I wouldn't even call Infinity War and Endgame movies. I'd go so far as to call them cinematic experiences. What I wouldn't give to go back in time and experience these movies again in cinemas for the first time surrounded by a bunch of hardcore fans who have all been on the same ride together for over a decade. Man, talk about an electric atmosphere. You don't get to have this level of hype and excitement without doing the hard work first. And Marvel certainly did this with every phase leading up to this. If you think about it, even the slightly mid or just straight up not great movies still had a purpose when it came to building up the Infinity Saga. While I do believe that Avengers Endgame specifically may not hold up as well when it comes to being an individual movie, I see it more as a representative of all the movies that have come before it. And yet it still fully delivered everything that it sought out to do in the epic grand finale and the emotional climax. I mean, I could watch the final battle on repeat for days. Also, I have an Avengers Endgame shirt. That means absolutely nothing to this review, but yeah. But we also can't forget about Infinity War. I personally feel like this is the greatest MCU movie of all time. The Russo brothers do a fantastic job of juggling all of the ensemble cast, and pretty much every character has something very important to do, except for the Hulk. But what else is new?
Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards.
What are you doing to me? Come out! Come out! Come out!
All in all, this is the movie that I keep coming back to when I think about which MCU movie is the closest to flawless. And that pretty much sums up Phase 3 as a whole. But now that that's out of the way, I want to turn it over to y'all. Do you agree with my ranking? Or do you just think it's crap? Either way, let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to see what y'all's ranking would be for all 4 phases. And also, just as a little side note, I am working towards 1,000 subscribers. So if you want to join the family, you know what to do. I have a lot of big plans for 2023, and I can't wait to show y'all what I'm cooking up. But with all of that out of the way, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.